Alright, another voiceover for you guys. So far they seem to be quite well received. Winging out here, out in the Asawas, winging out to about 2.5 to 3 kilometers offshore. It's a medium-sized run for me for a deflate. At this point I'm just by the outer reef, testing some of the riding. I have a meet-up spot now where I will meet the drone, so Alison can find me quite easily and head out to me direct. It seems to save battery that way. We're finding we still have about 30% battery left at the moment, so that's pretty cool. So I might be able to push it out a few more Ks maybe. Using the 2.8 meter PPC surge. Perfect wing for me for these sorts of runs. If I'm using a smaller foil for big days, well then there's plenty of wind. And if I'm using a big foil for smaller days, well, that wing is enough for me to get out there even in low wind with the big foil, especially with the longer downwind boards. But you can see here it's a beautiful spot. Most of the beaches are quite sandy, soft white sand. The water's warm, it's easily mid-20s. And then we've got the outer reef here. This was low tide, so this reef does actually block a fair bit of the energy coming through. And what I found is I am trying to find the channel and start where the channel is so that the energy follows through a bit more. But it really is like a reset, this spot. Although there is still head-high bumps coming through. So yeah, this is where we've settled on being for the time being, and I'm getting pretty comfortable now. And starting to use more fun foils for me, surf more. That was my approach for this run. This was a couple of days ago. Just wanting to surf as much as I can now in the bumps. Previously I've been using foils and setups that will get me home and get me on foil, just for as little stress as possible. But now I'm choosing foils that I can throw around a bit, and actually they're just as easy, maybe even easier to use than the HAs that I've been relying on. So in this run I've got the 1180 Spitfire from Axis. 1180 centimeters is the span. It's quite a reasonably high aspect, but I consider it a mid-aspect foil. I think it's around 9 aspect ratio. But it has really good bottom end and really good stability for on water. So the 1180 I feel real stable standing on the board. If I size down to the next foil size down, which is the 1100 span foil, I notice a huge change in stability just standing on the board. I get knocked around a bit more. The board feels a bit more flighty underfoot. So that actually plays a big role in my comfort out there, is having a foil that makes it easier to get on foil. So I might be able to get the 1100 on foil almost as easy as the 1180 in terms of strength needed or technique needed. But the 1100 really does restrict me while I'm standing on the water in some ways. So it's actually harder, even though there's less drag, it's harder for me to be in balance enough that I can add enough power for as long as I need to get on foil. It's not a crazy difference, but it's noticeable for me. So that plays into things a little bit and why I do actually pick spannier foils. And I'm kind of looking forward to these fireballs now that they're released, and using the spanniness of them, but with a reduced chord, but still plenty of section and camper for lift and whatnot. So yeah, I'm finding I'm enjoying the span of foils. Or maybe not enjoying it, but it's a certain level of comfort for me, and I'm happy to choose bigger foils for that reason. paired it with the 40 skinny rear foil. It's a 40mm maximum cord, I think. I've got the silly short fuse here, the Advanced Plus, the new one with the diode. And the medium PPC paddle, 72cm Pro Mast as well, ultra high mod. And that's a prototype axis board. So that's pretty much all the equipment. Oh, my shirt is the Zhik and cap is the Zhik. And I've actually got some headphones in. They're the skull ones that have like the vibration technology, so they don't block your ear holes, giving you a little bit more awareness and leaving your balance a little bit more undisturbed than in-ear AirPods or whatnot. I just got going then. I'm getting carried away talking about gear. That was a nice, easy get up. I didn't really wait for the second wave on the push. I got up on the first push and used it to get going. Been using the 1180 a bit out here and finding my takeoffs a bit more difficult than the 1201. I feel like the drag of it holds me back a little bit and my acceleration's slower, so that's been a bit more difficult for the paddle ups, but honestly they're all pretty similar. Here I am starting the run, getting a feel for the size. You know, every day is a little bit different, the patterns are a bit different. So the first part of my run is really just making sure I don't fumble it, keeping some forward speed, getting in sync with what's happening. How often is something steep coming? Are there big peaks to follow? What am I going to follow? Is there crossed up energy? And that's something I want to talk about in the future too. Not in this video, but crossed up energy and how to attack it. That took me a while to figure out, and I know that causes stress for a lot of guys that are in the earlier stages of their downwinding. But here I'm just cutting a straight line, just doing little wiggles, little snakies, getting a feel of that foil. One other thing I did was I've moved my mast back a touch, just 1.5 centimeters for these runs with the Spitfire. Nothing to do with the front foil, but all to do with me getting sick of touching the back of my board to the water. So I would see in the past a lot of guys riding boards with their foil quite far back, their mast quite far back, and I would see all that board out front. And that didn't look right to me. And so I would always put my foil in a position where I could stand centered on the board. And that's been great because visually you can see a smaller board out front. There's less swing weight. You're really minimizing your experience of that board. The big downside that I'm really starting to feel now is that when you do center your stance on that board, you've got a lot of board sticking out the back. That seems to be mostly fine if you have a longer mast and you're using that long mast efficiently and riding high. But I'm using the 72 centimeter mast, and that's not a whole lot of mast. Like, people comment on how low I ride, and it looks low to me as well. But that sticker, the Axis logo on the mast, is essentially halfway down the mast. And of course, your foil is not at the bottom of that mast, it is forward of that mast. So when I'm on a wave like this, it looks like I'm low because you can see the water at the sticker level. But there's only half a mast left at that point, and my foil is forward of that. So my foil is actually quite close to the face of the wave. More than that, just looking at the mast visually will show. Not a major, but just something. Anyway, back to my point. I'm having to ride the board reasonably low. I don't dispute that. And having board out the back just means I'm constantly hitting it down and tapping it on the water. Not just the rear of the board, also the under the side of the board as well, in the middle, which is on me. I can probably take care of that. But when you're riding forward straight down the swell and you pitch upwards, then the back of the board touches down. Anyway, long story, sorry, but I've moved my mast now back to try and combat that and shorten that back end of the board somewhat. And already, even just moving it a centimetre and a half, I've noticed a big difference. Having less board out the back. Maybe that's placebo, maybe I'm riding differently, but I don't think so. Anyway, so that's currently working for me. I don't even notice that extra board out the front, and there's probably more swing weight, but visually it doesn't matter, and just having that extra clearance has been amazing. So that's a big one for me. That might be the takeaway for this video. The other thing I have done on this setup is I've put in a plus 0.5 shim, actually, a positive shim. So that is increasing the differential angles between the front and rear foil. So I'm basically getting more lift and more drag. And that has also been really fun to play with. Prior to using the 40 skinny, which I'm using here, I was using the 55 skinny because it gives me a bit more of a platform feel, more lift, and it's basically easier to get up on foil. A little bit of a pain once you're up with that drag for me, but it was worth it to cover my getting on foil stress. But now I'm on the 40 skinny, and it was quite a contrast from going from the 55 to the 40. The much smaller rear foil. I felt a little bit pitchy. I wasn't used to it again, and this is from somebody who's using regularly a cut down 35 skinny. So the 40 uncut is really mid-range. So yeah, going from the 55 skinny, I've gone back to the 40. I'm finding it a little bit looser than I've become accustomed to now, and adding that positive shim has helped a lot. I'm really enjoying the pressure through the board, extra lift. It's creating more of a three-dimensional feel to the system. Some people talk about their setup feeling like you're in powder, and I'm starting to experience that more with this positive shim. So it feels like I'm in a 3D zone that I can counter that up pressure and rely on it and ride comfortably, rather than when it's neutralized, it's a little bit point and shoot, which is very efficient and great for efficiency, but I'm actually liking this feel of the pressure. And I know Axis used to have a name for having one of the more pressured foil systems, a bit like Wingfoil, and it kind of lost that feeling with the advanced fuses and the advanced plus now, even more so. And adding that tail shim has actually made a big positive change for me. So I'm going to explore that more. I'm going to try the 0.75 shim, and then I might even stack them for a 1.25 and just push things like I do and see how that works. And maybe I can combat that with my cut down 35 skinny. So maybe I'll shim it heavily for lift and then use the small rear. So we'll see how that goes. Here I am talking about equipment on this beautiful run. Just about to come to the finish. I think the foil actually touches the ground here. But that's some of my gear thoughts, and maybe you guys can try that. Shimming's very inexpensive. It's not very committing. You get amazing changes, and I would recommend using the positive shims. Because going negative is how I started shimming, and it's great, it's efficient, but it's more technical. There's a new person I've just met. This is Toru. I just met him just at this moment. He was doing some stuff. He's probably from the local village, and we just introduced ourselves, and I let him know a little bit about what I was doing, and just paying my respects to him, being in his homeland. And he had a young friend here with him, so they were going about their business. So that's cool, getting to meet people. in new places. And I tried to ask this young guy if he was having a good day, but it was lost in translation, but he gave me the thumbs up, and that seems to be an international sign of all good. So there we are. Try shimming. Start with positive shimming, because I think that gives you positive results. Negative shimming might give you negative results. Just so happens that's how they're named. And yeah, moving on from here, I'm going to be using the slightly longer fuse in my next videos. I'm basically just trying to get back to equipment that I can utilize the full range of their abilities. So, I'm not the most skilled person, and I'm using gear that easily outweighs my skill level. So I'm going to step it back, scale it back, and start going to more basic foils for myself, and really try and use them to their full power, basically, before getting lost in smaller gear. But anyway, thanks guys, and thanks Kitty for being an adorable little puppy, and Alison for the drone footage. See you on the next one. Bye.